Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I was just going to announce that the snakes are coming out in a few moments and everyone should now come and sit down. But I wouldn't do that. Good evening and welcome to Lunuganga. It's a privilege to have all of you. I would like to specially welcome Prince Constantijn of Netherlands and all the senior people of the Prince Claus Foundation, the funds, and the Seed Awardees, and all the others who have flown out here many miles to be with us to celebrate this moment of maybe consolidation, achievement, whatever we might call it, but somehow things that bring people together. And there's nothing more wonderful than having people with diverse ideas, diverse thoughts, coming together and to be able to talk with each other. If we talked a little bit more, perhaps we'll have a little bit more peace around the world. I would, at this point, like to remind all of you, and particularly those of the Prince Claus Fund, that in 2001, it was a little bit of money that you had granted Pooja, who's seated right in front of me, that created one of the first arts residencies that happened here in these grounds. For me, sort of a bit of a newcomer, not so much to art, but to this whole idea of performance arts, it was really a revelation. And that was one of the first events we at the Lunuganga Trust decided to do here. Because when Baba left this property to us as trustees to look after, you can think of a million different things to do. You can make it a residency, you can make it something else, you can make it all these other things. And that's where we started. There were arts residencies. We connected with Asia Link in Australia. We had the Tirtha programs that happened for 3-4 years, inspired by Pooja's first event here. But in the end, you also need money for all of this. And that's the point at which the Lunuganga Trust decided, of course, to make the place into a space that we could share with people who would pay us money to enjoy it. And I'm particularly grateful to Fariba and the Prince Claus Fund for having chosen us as your partners. Because everything that comes to the Trust, and for allowing us to host you, because it means that any transaction that happens with the Trust goes back into all the work we do. So I think it's pretty important that all of you know that. And the Trust is structured as a private trust, a not-for-profits trust, set up by Jeffrey Baba in 1993. And we have worked really hard in the last 20-odd years since he's passed on to keep this going, to keep these spaces going, so that all of us, and it's open to the public, and so that all of us can engage with it in a way that wasn't possible, actually, when Mr. Baba was around. And so we are very, very proud that we've been able to achieve that. And everything that you do and every program that you work with us on helps us keep this place going for posterity. I can't believe it that it was 50 years since it was done that Jeffrey passed away, and in the last 25 years, we've been looking after it as a trust, and that for us is a huge achievement, and that couldn't have happened with all of you connecting with us in different levels. And so thank you very much for that. It's wonderful to see so many of you here, and once again, I'd like to, and if any of you want to know any more of the work that we do with the Trust, there's a little booklet on the way out. Please pick it up. We are addressing all the different issues that we need to address, both as a custodian of Jeffrey Baba's story, and also the story of modern architecture in Sri Lanka. We're doing it slowly and surely, and as we have our young team working hard to put it all together, we are beginning to learn new layers of these different stories that are embedded in these spaces and these places. So once again, thank you very much. Thank you very much again, Prince Claus. My team at the Lunuganga Trust, We are very proud that you have managed to pull this off. It's been absolutely wonderful to see you working on all of that. I would like you to give them a round of applause. Thanks, Shari, Shanika, all of you. There are so many of you now, so thank you very much for all that hard work. And of course, to the staff of Lunuganga, who keep this place so beautifully, particularly the garden staff, who keep this place so beautifully so that we can keep looking at it and admiring and engaging with it in whatever way we can. The way as I mentioned before, in my talk, in my tour, I tell different stories every time. And that's because the garden has so many stories to tell. And we can all have our own experiences of it. And really, really grateful that we are able to engage with it in the way we do. So thank you very much. And for the rest of the evening, I hope all of you have a great time. We are really looking forward to all those wonderful presentations from the Seed Awardees and, of course, to conversations after. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Keng Sen Ong. I'm the Artistic Director of the Symposium and not a member of the Prince Claus Funds, I'm happy to say, because there's always an independent position that artists and artistic directors have to be aware of. And I would first like to start off by, as I'm representing a little bit the funds here, I would first like to thank Bawa Trust, because without them, none of this is possible. You know, in the last years, we've always been in the Royal Palace at this time, and also invited by the Royal Palace. So in a sense, there's a kind of a parallel that we are invited here by Bawa Trust, and it's a relationship of enabling both sides to continue to do the work which you would see today about the seeds for the future. And this question of where we would go in the next 27 years, right? I mean, the Prince Claus Funds has existed for 27 years, and we're going to go on, I suppose, for more and more of the future. We must believe that, we must hope. And I remember talking to Bessa, who is here today from Kosovo, and we were discussing on Zoom, and she said, I think we should talk about hope. And so, yes, let's keep that hope. And I would like to say that the next part of the evening will be an invitation to Prince Constantijn to have a little conversation here on stage with me. So please welcome Prince Constantijn to be on stage with us. I think for theatre, this side is more visible. So, Prince.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, they say that if you on stage, people who enter from stage left is the main character. I'm only the interviewer. I'm the one who is on this side of the stage.
But you entered from that side.
I had to, but then now we are in a couplet or a duet. So, you know, I think, first of all, thank you very much for doing this with the funds. And you are the honorary chair. And of course, as the honorary chair, you know, you have many other duties and responsibilities, and you have been actually always engaged and involved. So it's a pleasure that we are once again having an occasion to talk, apart from 25 years ago, 25 years anniversary.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's true. We did actually talk before. So we are very. This is like the things we do. You know, we have nothing to do. I call you up, and we have talks.
But I think that one of the things which was interesting in a small conversation that the Prince and I had was that we talked about the beginnings of the funds, and we talked a little bit about these words, culture and development. And of course, it's been, you know, quite central. Is it culture for culture? Is it culture is culture, or culture is a tool for development? Or is it that culture needs to be there as a basic condition for development? And when we were discussing this, the Prince mentioned something new, which I was very impressed by, and I want to share it with you all and to ask him more about it. Because he talks about that now this is a new era of culture as ownership. And of course, we are in a very kind of like, I would say, like, there is the process of decolonization all over the world, and this question of who owns culture and who should, in a way, continue that culture, and how do we, in a way, enable the culture to happen, to develop.
Yes, so when the Prince Claus Fund started, it was about culture and development, and those two words, there was actually a conference about this. There was always a tension between those two. Is it purely about culture, or does culture, is it functional, is it utility to lead to development, or is it a condition to make development effective? And I think the fund never really solved this issue. It kept bouncing up and down between the two concepts and exploring them. And so we were giving awards or working with institutions that would definitely use culture to give youth employment or for other purposes. And I think now I think we're finding much more of a common voice where it's no longer about because our views of culture have changed as well. They're not national cultures anymore. They're not regional, but their cultures can be also very personal. And as we've with the fund focused much more on the individual and how individuals explore their relationship with their environment, then this whole question has actually become much less important, and it's much more about what is actually culture and who may own it, and what are the artifacts of culture. And our culture has become something which is hotly debated. And in the past, very often people would say, "Well, how relevant is culture?" Culture was like always the thing we had to fight for to get it funded. And even though we're still in a fight to get culture and development funded, I think the topics around those two concepts are more visible and more apparent than they ever were before, and it's been in that sense easier. But also, there's much more purpose now in the fund, I think, than there maybe was at the beginning.
Yeah, so I think that this whole question which we have been dealing with of like what is culture, how do we develop culture, for whom is culture for, it's quite central to, in a way, the reason why Prince Claus Funds also has made a decision to actually go local, to be involved in a Biennial Symposium. And in a way, I would like to ask you, like, why has the fund come to Sri Lanka and to be here in this Bawa estate?
Yeah, well, if you have a host like the Bawa Trust, then who doesn't want to come here, right? I mean, we've seen not only this place, but everywhere we went. It's been so hospitable and so generous, and such beautiful locations as well. So I just want to acknowledge that. Well, but there are very practical reasons. You have to be able to reach it. It has to be relatively neutral. People from the region have to be able to travel there. So that was one of the reasons. The other reason is that we had a long relationship with Sri Lanka, but we, in the last years, we haven't invested a lot in Sri Lanka, and we felt that there was a lot of activity here that we did want to support. Many of our Seed Awards are actually from Sri Lanka, and we have many of our people in our network are from here, but we hadn't engaged that much, so we really wanted to engage more. That was, I think, another reason. And I think I had some of the conversation I had over these 2 days with people is that what can you do as a fund? We are a Dutch fund, so what can we enable that wouldn't otherwise be enabled? So we're creating or co-creating with Bawa Trust a space where people can meet and discuss also issues, local issues, and maybe as sometimes an outsider can help in doing that. So I think the fund will be looking at engaging much more at the local level, but creating spaces that maybe otherwise cannot be created.
I think that one of the central questions which we as contemporary individuals, people, we're very much, in a way, we have inherited the past. in so many different ways. And we have inherited what happened here in this land in a way. And of course, what happened, we know a little bit of the challenges. Some of you visited some sites today with the paintings that depicted Bawa's life, and in a way, this is something that we cannot run away from. We are contemporary people. We have a past that we did not create, but we've inherited that. And I think that one of the conversations with the Prince that we talked about was that I wanted to know, like, what do you do with this legacy? There is a legacy that the fund was, and how in the 27 years it is constantly evolving, and where you think the urgencies are today in more concrete ways of being a fund in Europe and engaging with the global South, for example.
Yeah, so there's a lot of legacy to be proud of, but I think one of the risks of legacy is that you don't reinvent yourself. So it's actually it's in the leadership of the fund. It's in the people of the fund. It's in you all engaging with the fund and us being receptive. We need to keep developing and to stay relevant. Otherwise, you typically will hold on to certain artifacts, with our awards, as you said, in the palace, and that's something we're good at, and we feel comfortable about, and everybody will tell you that was a great event, but we're actually missing so many opportunities. So legacy has this side to it that it maybe stops you from innovating. So I think that's important. We have to keep looking forward. Also, I think over time, culture in the Netherlands was a relatively naive concept. Culture and art, and it wasn't as loaded as it is now. Actually, we have over the last few years have gone also through a big exploration of our own past and our history, and how history is connected with culture, and especially our colonial past and our past linked to slave trade and slave ownership, which was not discussed in the same way. A bit like we before had the discussion around the role in the Second World War, where we were seen as a victim, but in fact we stood by when 100 million Jews had been deported, and that was is an awakening. So these conversations become much more interesting in a sense, because the Netherlands, and I think many countries in Western Europe, are exploring their own histories and how we have created them, and why those narratives maybe don't stand up anymore, and how it's really also a discussion about ourselves, and not so much even all the discussions I heard yesterday about heritage and who owns culture, who owns your memory. Those kind of questions were never asked, and now we suddenly realize that we have actually taken away or dictated what people's memories should be, and that awareness means that it's also for an organization like the Prince Claus Fund, there's an actual duty to reach out and to enter into those conversations, because it's something we will learn from. It's conversations we actually were not experienced in actually conducting. So and they lead to a lot of resistance as well in my country, because some people say you don't want to stir in the past, you want to leave the heroes on their pedestals, and other people want to pull them down, and other people say, well, just put leave them there, but put a plaque explaining what the true history was, or maybe not the true history, but that there were different versions of that history that we need to be aware of.
Yeah. I think that one of the interesting things, again, in our conversations, you've always talked about the narratives that are coming from the ground up now. That a lot of the narratives that you hear, you would encounter 11 seed artists today, or seed awards today, and they have very strong narratives. And what is your response to these narratives when you hear them, when you encounter them at the different ceremonies, the different events that you have been with the Prince Claus Funds?
These questions are different. So I see amazing people, sometimes at a young age, doing incredible stuff and connecting dots that might have not been connected before, and finding a medium or a way of talking. We've seen I don't know if you've all been peeping probably at the paper on your chair, and I never really thought about how a name can be, but I won't give it away, but can be have such an impact, and be so determining about somebody's identity. So all of these insights are are extremely profound. And that's the luxury of being engaged with a fund like this, and especially if you have gatherings where so many people come together from all these different backgrounds, sharing their experiences, but also their medium of expressing their views, and which is incredibly rich. And it kind of humbles me. Everyone sitting in this audience will have an incredible practice that is in itself worth being on this podium. And we as a fund just get to bring you all together and help make the exchange happen, because sometimes you can be very isolated as a cultural practitioner, and making that exchange possible and showing that in many different localities will have different issues, but they also share many issues, and to allow that exchange to happen is a big honor, actually.
I think maybe the last question, since we should move on to the event of the night. The last question is a little bit about the future ahead, right? The challenges ahead. And I know that one of the strong impetuses of the fund has always been to build this ecosystem in a way, the connectivities and also the continuities, and in a way this network, which is quite central for the fund in terms of the people power, the people relationships. How do you think it will go in the next, let's say, decade as we go into the future?
Yeah, funny, you mentioned a lot of things, like network, community, ecosystem, and these are all different things. And we try to sometimes obscure ourselves with using these terms. So we thought we were a network organization, but actually we were hub and spoke. Everything was centered around the Prince Claus Fund. So that's not a network. A network manages to connect among the nodes, and we didn't manage that. So what we were talking about network. So community, again, is something many organizations strive for nowadays, because it's something you feel. It's not just a utilitarian. It's something you have to want to be part of, and that's a very strong thing if you can manage that. So an ecosystem is much more everything that's around that facilitates that. So I'm in my daily life, I work with startups, and so we have to do the same. We build a community of tech founders, because we find that the best thing that they can get is peers telling them, giving them honest feedback, and also sharing their practices with them. And because they don't want to listen to experts, they want to listen to peers. And so, but it's a challenge, because even though there's a purpose and there's a lot in common, you have so many other things to do. So how do you make sure, and this will be the challenge for the fund, that this actually is a community, and not because you can also be a gathering, right? You can be facilitating and all that. But if you want to be a community, that means that there has to be a value in it, in being connected, and that you don't know. It is not just a practical thing, but it's actually something you feel that you're connecting with, and something that you want to align with, and you want to actually also be an ambassador for. And so that's still, I think, pretty far out. I think if we can achieve that there is a community and that people actually feel that you can come to the fund because you have something to take, but also something to give, and you know that the fund is always there to be a supportive or a platform to that community, then we've been successful. But I think before that, there's so many other ways that we can help support the people that we work with the fund, and that are all doing amazing work. And so maybe that we're hopeful that the first step is that it's a network, and that what we're doing here, connecting South-South, and that eventually it might also become a community, because if you have a community, you can actually start doing things together. And that is actually what the ultimate vision is, that we can together create change, and the change will lead to more freedom and a more just world, in a more sustainable world, and that you do better as a community than you do as a network of loose individuals.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so maybe we can begin to move the chairs and move on to the seats for the future. I think the last remark by the Prince is really energizing, because this idea that you begin in a way, how do we move away from this transactional quality of what a network is, right? That the network is usually transactional. The relationships are very practical, and in a sense, from here, the striving is to move towards a community. Thank you very much. A community of peers, and of peers who are equally engaged and trying to transform and to work with transitional justice, transformational justice, and in that way, in a sense, that means that we are the activators of the ecosystem. We don't just inherit it, but it is our role to actually reform, rethink, and rework it in a way. And I want to start off now by talking a little bit about these seed artists who there are 11 have been specially curated for this evening, and they approach I feel they approach conversations and dialogues in a very different way for me, meaning like they are working with sometimes quite whimsical ideas, you know, and for me, it's also about a change, you know, as we move into, most of these artists and cultural workers are in their 20s, early 30s, and sometimes they're working with secret conversations because they've had to go underground but still be public. Sometimes they are shifting the relationships away from a human relationship to looking at relationships with non-human things, and overall there is quite a different process. They're very much engaged with. A lot of them want to continue working in their communities, and they're finding different strategies. And as we know, the strategy of just being confrontational, being red hot, being like pushing against something, as we see time and time again, is not necessarily going to resolve some of these future conversations. So I think that one of the great things tonight, perhaps, as we participate and as we share with their work, is to think a little bit about these changes in strategies and what is very natural for them as they engage with some of the problematics that actually we see as very big issues, right? We see like climate justice is one very big issue, equities and freedoms, and how, in a way, the processes which they engage with are surprising, revelationary in many ways. Is that good English? Revelatory, and I see that as a kind of a transformation of the scene, and just being engaged with what is coming up from the ground. So I would let them speak for themselves, and this can be there are 11 of them. We hope that the weather holds for a while more, and if it gets very heavy, like some of you experienced in the stables yesterday. We are under a zinc roof, so it's going to be loud and noisy. We will then finish the presentation and hold on for a short while if it gets too heavy. So we try not to stop in the middle of someone's presentation. So, and now we begin the evening with Seeds of the Future. Some of you may be aware that Debashish has actually been performing around the estate, and that's why some people were late, because they were watching him performing around the estate. And the entire costume is made from paperwork and is made completely by Debashish. It's very fragile, and we had some difficulties to transport it here, but I'm very happy that the two costumes arrived, one for the pet and one for himself, and he's going to bring them on to Goa, where he's going to make another performance there. So thank you very much, Debashish.
How do we keep expressing through art when we have no freedom of expression? And how do we depict our reality when we are being silenced by the armed gangs? As you have already know about the situation in Myanmar, we have lost all our rights to collectively express our experiences, the traumas, the emotions, and the thoughts that we have because of the danger that it imposed on us. But do you think like art and culture ever be stopped? I don't think so, because you know why? Culture is a basic need. And as a person, Burmese person who wants to continue living in Myanmar and continue belonging to the community that I work for, we must navigate and find ways through these like big walls and boundaries to seep our emotions, our expressions through the little cracks that we could find, and always keep on expressing ourselves and always try to find new strategies to never give up on hope. And as human beings and as a filmmaker, I like to tell stories, and I want to be understood and I want to connect. But since I can no longer roar out loud anymore. Like I can no longer roar out like a lion anymore, because roaring out means it's fire, it's straightforward, it's revolutionary, it's clear, it's direct, it's powerful, and it's very action-based. But unfortunately, I'm not allowed to do that anymore. So I have to adapt to become like a water, to flow and to become fluid, to become sensible, and to have a lot of nuances, to go abstract. And also water makes up a lot of, our whole body. So water stores a lot of our memories. So I believe that if we cannot look outside to depict the reality that we live in, I think we have to look inside to reflect the reality that we live in through our dreams, our memories, our imaginations, and our thoughts. So that's why I want to tell you a story about the first memory that I've ever had when I was around 5 years old. I was just a little kid, running around in the garden and playing with the soil, and my hands, they got dirty. So I just rushed and ran to the sink to wash my hands. But in the sink, I saw an ant just lying down and chilling, in the sink and not moving anywhere. I was actually waiting for it to go away. I was like knocking on the sink, making noises, scaring it away, but it just didn't move at all. And so after a while, I had to make my first decision of my human entire life. Like my first decision is to kill the ant or not. as the theme of this symposium is legacies of care, failures, and emerging solidarities, I'm just trying to stand my solidarity with the ants. I'm just kidding. But that aside, I find this like the experience that I've witnessed in my childhood in parallel to the experiences that I'm going through in my life this past 2-3 years ago, because we become ants, we become like humans who has the power. Power is always in the circle of life. And then also some of the ants decided to escape, some of the ants decided to just stay and stay in the thing and survive. So the altar is not just one of the lights that we are trying to shine from the underground. It's actually a part of one of the 6 Burmese short films that is produced from the workshop called Lights from the Underground. And it's the workshop that my film organization 3ACT conducted a year ago. So what we did is we invited Japanese experienced filmmakers to mentor the emerging Burmese filmmakers to work on their projects. And I believe that if no one's helping you and no one's initiating anything, you have to get up and do it yourself in the collective community spirit. And also because we cannot go out and shoot on the streets, because if we do so, we have to let the authorities know, and we can no longer make documentary films or fiction films because they are too logical. And then we must find new ways, and I think that's the place where experimental films comes into place in Myanmar. So I believe that a single ant cannot carry a food by itself, and it's only the colony of ants coming together to carry the food to their shelter for the welfare of not only themselves but for the community. And I hope that the lights, the altar is one of the lights that keeps shining brighter and brighter, to paint the wall a much more colorful place, not only in Myanmar but throughout the world. Thank you.
I investigated the degradation of fisheries and water resources on the east coast of Sri Lanka. People with political clout, Mandive Hospital Management, Batikalo Teaching Hospital Management, and others are dumping large amounts of garbage, including medical waste and human body parts around the lagoon. Batikalo Teaching Hospital owns Mandive, an island in the midst of Batikalo Lagoon. The hospital's medical waste and the discarded human body parts are taken to Mandive and dumped openly. The island of Mandive has been filled with a foul odor as a result of this. The progressive destruction of aquatic and fishing resources has been caused by medical and chemical waste dissolving into the lagoon water. For the household in Valera area of Batikolo Lagoon, fishing is their only source of income. I was able to closely observe the challenges thanks to the fisherman's family. I followed them around for a while and documented their daily activities. In the years 2018-2019, my images were witness for the horrible plight of fishing families in the area who have lost their livelihood and today live in precarity. Thank you.
Hi. So through my work, I talk about themes surrounding female autonomy, desire, and virtue. Now, culturally speaking, female virtue is held to a higher degree, which results in an unspoken governance that conditions behavior, and in its worst cases, results in a kind of oppression. Now, the weaponization of virtue itself threatens female autonomy, and to exist outside of this perceived notion of goodness, it's really important to reclaim desire. I talk about desire not just as an expression of sexual desire, but rather desire as an all-encompassing need. Now, one of the visual metaphors I use for this in my work is a symbol of the fish, specifically the dead fish. Its lifeless body and breathless dance almost becomes a caricature for its desire to exist. Now, as a maker, I'm particularly drawn to tools of storytelling, and specifically the genre of magical realism. Now, the origin of the genre itself is rooted in a kind of resistance, one that ultimately presents reality and fantasy seamlessly slipping into one another. Now, Karachi, the city I'm from, can be volatile and infuriating, but you can always hear the hum of her magic. Now, interestingly, in local language, Karachi would always be grammatically referred to with the masculine pronoun, but I almost always refer to it with the feminine pronoun. Perhaps that's why I find it easier to sense her magic. Now, moving on, I call this work the wishing machine. Household appliances have always fascinated me. The mechanization of the home is an interesting phenomenon that directly resulted in reducing a woman's labor at home. So while this object, the washing machine, represents a kind of emancipation, I have tried to kind of morph it into a wishing well of sorts. I also borrow a lot from vernacular visual vocabulary. And if you look at shrines and mystical spaces in the region, kitsch is a recurring visual motif. So I wonder to what extent in me appropriating that vocabulary allows my work to bear the attributes of being an object of ritual. Now, this work directly comes from the vulnerability of experiencing harassment. The idea was to attempt to reposition myself from being outside of being the object of gaze and rather the perpetrator. I use sound to startle the viewer. Now, this work is a self-portrait of sorts. Once again, you can see how I use elements of kitsch and storytelling as a medium. Now, the idea of virtue and how it is regulated is an important conversation to have because it has societal implications. But the problem that I experience is a lack of understanding of the autonomous body in a nuanced manner. I find myself heavily distancing from the term feminism because it is heavily rooted in Western ideology, one that considers me to be oppressed because of how I choose to dress. Now, it's important to understand that I do not derive my sense of morality from the patriarchy, but rather in spite of it. Now, femininity is radiant and magical, and it can come in all shades. Ultimately, liberation can look different for all. And all of its magic is all of femininity's magic is encapsulated within, in, and of itself. And to view that with a hegemonic lens takes away some of its transformative power. And thank you, Keng. Thank you.
Good deal.
Bảo huyết là thắng một đẹp. Vừa là thì anh đi. Bảo là doctor đúng. Doctor là tiếng Anh phải.คุณnhớ là rồi. Cầm lại hết bắt đầu lên đi ra rồi. Mình xuống đây là suy chứ tụng về đi.
Bye, muy phải rồi đồng bè. Nhưng mà nó chụp tên. Đừng có vào đi bộ.
Anh xin lỗi là.
Thì là phải làm em đi.
Tôi đọc thư là tôi lâu là tôi đi bộ.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is the film I have made. I have been making actually almost for 2 years. It was partly made by partially crowdfunding. So let me introduce within a short time, within when we are talking about the legacies of care, failures, and solidarities. I am Adit Dewan, a filmmaker from Chittagong Hill Tracks, Bangladesh. Chittagong Hill Tracks is a place where there are, we can say, like visibly there are political and military crises. But when the urgency is to make such films, rather as I think I'm a very powerless person, so I made some films about the ants and humans who are very powerless like me. I only wanted to focus on their daily struggles, how to carry food and to carry on their dreams. So that's what so far now I want to say. Thank you, everybody.
My name is Asad Ali Zulfiqar, and I go by they, them. Sorry. Can we start the slide all over again? Yeah, thank you. My father and my maternal grandmother named me after their shared zodiac sign, Leo, Asad. My mother was fond of the name Ali, but Zulfiqar was not a choice. It was my father's first name and patrilineally my last. My mother decided the order Asad Ali Zulfiqar. For the longest time, I have not shared my full name with anyone unless it is compulsory. My name is loaded with masculine connotations in the Muslim world, marred by years and years of violence at the hands of those who gave me this name. But the black feminist writer Alexis Pauline Gumbs gave me a new perspective to look at it. She wrote, what if your name was not an individual, but a compass? Gumbs inspired me to consolidate the experience of being in my trans body with a history of Shia Muslims, and I have never felt more powerful knowing I'm Asad Ali Zulfiqar. To share how I arrived here and explore identity in its multifaceted, dynamic nature, I designed a method, names as compasses. Names are often imbued with memories and light. They are felt as weights of gendered and cultural expectations, ethnic and religious and national histories. But they also offer a way for us to belong to our families, our lineages, our communities, and to ourselves. The method that I use in this workshop is rooted in Black feminist and Sufi and Shia praxis of remembering. that helps us connect to our histories from a compassionate space. The Latin component of the word remember are re, meaning again, or back to the original place, and membrum, meaning limb, which is an integral part of the body that helps us move. Hence, remembering is not a passive process, but to remember is precisely to move and to affirm that something is a part of us and we can access it. So far, I have conducted this workshop in community spaces in Karachi, Lahore, Sheffield, with transgender youth, Black and East Asian women, and various Muslim sects. But I am interested in expanding this slow healing exploration of belonging and not belonging through not only in relationship to names, but also to housing, kinship, body, disability, language, food, rituals, and protest. Let me walk you through this process by remembering my own name. Who is Zulfiqar? Zulfiqar is my first memory of disidentification. When I was younger, my tongue refused to say Zulfiqar. When I grew older, my mind refused to be Zulfiqar. An everlasting feeling towards Zulfiqar is contempt. An everlasting memory of Zulfiqar is conflict. For as long as I can remember, I have despised Zulfiqar. For as long as I can remember, I have wished never to become Zulfiqar. Unfortunately, the universe doesn't hear negatives. Zulfiqar is a part of who I am. Zulfiqar is harsh. Zulfiqar is aggressive. Zulfiqar doesn't take no for an answer. Zulfiqar doesn't stop until he gets what he wants. Zulfiqar is cruel. Zulfiqar hates me. See how easy it is to despise Zulfiqar? Would you love someone like Zulfiqar? Who is Ali? Ali is my first memory of who I am. Everyone at home calls me Ali. Ali is domesticated. Ali is privatized. Ali belongs to the family until Ali went to school, where Ali for the first time was called Asad. Who is Asad? Asad is Ali become public. Asad is my first memory of agency. Asad is my playground to experiment and create someone more lovable than Ali and Zulfiqar. So I created an observant student, Asad, an artist, Asad, a feminist, Asad, a queer, Asad. I created Asad in the image of all that I considered worthy of love, because all I ever wanted was love. Who am I now? Am I Asad, Ali, or Zulfiqar? Can I hold all of them at once? Queer and trans people practice choosing names for themselves that affirm their conscious identity. I want to occupy all three of these names at once as my chosen name. To be Asad, Ali, Zulfiqar, firmly, gently, and all at once. I wonder who they are. I wonder what it must be like to no longer leave parts of me behind, to grow, to be loved. I wonder what it must feel like to bring all of me at once with graceful awareness into the present. And for their arrival, I make a prayer. May I look at the past with compassion. May I look at the future with curiosity. Gods were created when Scorpios truly loved someone. And Asad Ali Zulfiqar will be a goddess, and I await their arrival.
When there is a river, what happens when a river becomes the wind? Does it stop being a river? If it is not the river anymore, what it is? Where is its soul, its bone? How it will remember us, and through what? The vast mark left on the earth, which the moon sees every night. Does the moon have memories of an earlier form? Perhaps earth remembers. Does the surrounding remember? Maybe they were all swept away together, swept by the wave of time. On the silent shores, an empty river thinks of its future. I discovered that 31 hills of the Arauli range in Rajasthan, which passes by my hometown, have been illegally razed to the ground for the raw materials to support the construction boom. This destruction has not only disrupted the water flow of old Sabi River, but it has also transformed the cultural fabric of entire region. My project aimed to use non-human elements as a reference point to generate kinship and empathy, offering alternative perspectives on the regional landscape. And I thank King for your efforts on us, and Prince Claus Fund for the support, and thank you all.
must be a bamba regula. Upon the Mr. to the shula.
Where are you? As I got a viola. Go down, to Paletila.
Can you? How you tell? Li Dwang Ki Tokon. Upward be Missa Bin Sunday Ki Tonyas Swan New Long. Missa Juya Jutiro. Taita Sato Samazon. Upward be a manly Missa Tot to Kotoyak and the I am an Opomissa, which in my mother tongue, the indigenous Newa language, means a woman who is too much. And I have to be one, for a chance to be seen, for a chance to be anything back home in Nepal. Opomissa is the titular song of my feminist poetry and music project, where I collaborate with other female and queer musicians, visual storytellers, and theater artists to do multilingual songs, videos, and performances on the themes of women's bodies, freedom, and sexuality. As a spoken word poet, leaning into my love for rhyme and rhythm and exploring genres like rap and hip hop, not only was I rediscovering my sense of play, but I was also finally able to write in my mother tongue for the first time, overcoming decades of language shaming from Nepali and Newari speakers as well. Finding a female queer music producer to produce the rap song in Nepal proved quite a challenge. And I realized very quickly that this wasn't unique to Nepal. Even globally, female and queer representation in music tech, music production, studio recording, DJing is harshly inequitable. And not just music tech. Female and queer representation in any field, especially nuanced and dignified representation, is still hard to come by. Frustrated by this, I collaborated with my all-time inspiration, anarcho-feminist punk rocker and guitarist, Sarina Rai, to compose a song questioning, so where are our girls? But also letting the world know, we are everywhere. This I have to perform with the band, so I'm not going to do it there. So as you sing our stories of struggle and resistance, of course, we're also celebrating our joys, desires, and excellence. And one of the songs that I got to do recently, and for this, I actually found a female music Nepali producer in Nepal who not only is helping me produce this song, but also helped us with the basic music production classes, me and my other female collaborators, music student collaborators. I'm going to do an excerpt of it, a little bit. And I push the right buttons and I turn you on and I rev up that beautiful hum, and like that, what usually takes over 20, I bring it down to 10, 5, 3, 2, 1 minutes. Tenets of female pleasures written over lengths and girths of treasures like you, oh dear. So, collaborating across artistic disciplines has broadened my expression beyond poetry, and it has been beautiful to see it translate into music, into visual storytelling, and soon into body movements and performances. And I'm so excited to perform with my band of female musician friends who I gained over the process, and also expanded into new territories of theater, artist, and dance. I will close with an excerpt of a work in progress, a series of musical monologues about sexual abuse and intimidation that happens inside our homes, which I hope to expand in collaboration with, again, the theater artists and dancers. This one is called Pwa, Dhamujuka, or the unspeakable things in the belly. Dhammachitwatwat dhammajukha, dhammachitwatwat dhammajukha, dhammachitwatwat dhammajukha. Dhammachi thuat thuat dhammaji kha, dhammachi thuat thuat dhammaji kha, dhammachi thuat thuat dhammaji kha. Namo Bhagesoraye, Jane Dhunka Pwaraye. Namo Bhagesoraye, Jane Dhunka Pwaraye. Namo Bhagesoraye. Namo Bhagesoraye, Jane Dhunka Pwaraye. Ji chiri mama chable pwarangkane makha guble. Namo Bhagesoraye, Jane Dhunka Pwaraye. Ma baya chiro kubu nem tatke chujgeya. Namo Bhagesoraye. Gakne du chen thasa la fo wala mijo chama ui machable byayana tama bhamcha bishuwon khana kana uble ajimu pale athe mach bhamchala dayu chalan ha jiu jiu mai dhaya परिवार जन्न वय मे जना प byayana चलत ससमा न मरे धुंकु वछे फुक्क जा आजिए सोया मुठुलाई म ससबाया ख सुंक न्याना चोना ई फुना वली से ज्ञानी मजी न चिर 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 जुयावन सेवाला याना जी थ ससबाया स थास याए मफिया वन यहाँ ब्लेनी महाला चोनिउ खना तरी जुथुङ पि आजी म्यापिन स मालक मासुङ चना बिधाबले छट्टु सी वा वा खोए वला त धामछि थोत थोत धामजु ख धामछि थोत थोत धामजु ख छिम ससिए मसु छिमी बाजा गया मधया जिनु भमचाबले धामजु दुख बिउ मधया धामछि थोत थोत धामजु ख धामछि थोत थोत धामजु ख जिमी ससबान द सोयुमय जिमी ससबान द सोयुमय जिमी ससबान द सोयुमय जिमी ससबान द छिउमय दक्षमय लो मंकी मफु वनाप जेनिवा धाउमय दक्षमय लो मंकी मफु वनाप जेनि छोयाही धाउमय Namo Bhagesoraye, भन्ना नहुने कुरा भने Namo Bhagesoraye, telling these tales I'm not supposed to tell. Namo Bhagesoraye, khakana apwa arame. Namo Bhagesoraye, telling these tales put in my belly at ease. Thank you.
මාතෘත්වයේ සොයා යාම මාතෘත්වයේ නැමැති රුව වැඩි වීට පැමිණි කල සුදු මල් සහිත දිය කලයකින් පාරිශුද්ධත්වයට පත් වූ ඇය අවිය අමෝරාගත් ළමා සොල්දාදුවෙකුසේ මා මේ මාතෘ භූමියට කැපවිය. තවත් එකකු ගෘහ සේවයට පිටරට ගියේ නැවත මවුරට බලා යාමට නොව. ඇය තවත් මොහොතකදී දේශපාලන කරලියට පැමිණියේ සියලු බාධක හමුවේ මේ රටේ නායකයෙකුද අනිත් අතට විහිළුවක් විය. ඇය දැන් නායකයෙකුසේ මේ මව්බිම ආරක්ෂා කරන්නේද? දැන් ඇය ගැබිනියක්සේ මේ මව්බිම ආරක්ෂා කරන්නේය. ඒ ගැබිනියම මොහොතක මරාගෙන මැරෙන මව බෝම්බකරුවෙකුසේ මේ මව්බිම තුල මිය යන්නේය. දැන් ඇය බෝම්බ සහිත බෑගයක් අමෝරාගත් මවක්. තවත් මොහොතකදී මුළු ජීවිතේම මෙරටට කැප කරපු ගෘහ සේවකයෙක්.
Yeah, so first and foremost, I forgot, I mean, it's basically, for me, this was like a very holy performance. Holy meaning, something that I was not prepared myself. And during that time, while doing this performance, my grandma was bedridden. And she was actually like, bedridden on that particular time when I was, preparing myself for this residency. I was forgetting the whole idea about queer here. rather than me being queer in this performance, I usually thought like, okay, I need to represent the queer identity, but here it's nothing like I didn't see myself as queer person or a feminine person or a masculine person or anything. Actually, I thought of breaking all those binary and thinking of me as a holy person here.
මමගේ පුද්ගල භාවය අනන්‍යතාවය ගැන කතිකාවක් උපතින් ආරම්භ කරනවා. එහි පාරම්පරික අනුගාමික මුල් බැසගත් පැතිකඩයන් වලින් පිරිච්ච අර්ථකථනයන් ගැන සොයාමක් සිදු කරනවා. මට ඒ සංවාදය තුල පාල පොතුපිටි කලාකරුවා හරහා ඔහුගේ පියා මාස්ටර් සෝමපාල පොතුපිටිය මුණ ගැසෙනවා. ඔහු ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ දකුණු ප්‍රදේශයේ පැවතෙන පහතරට පාරම්පරික නර්තන ශාන්තිකර්ම සම්ප්‍රදාය අවසාන පුරුකක් ලෙස එම කලාව පිළිබඳ මට කියා දෙන්න පටන් ගන්නවා. ඒ සම්ප්‍රදායේ රෙදිපිලි අනුන් ආයිතම් කතාන්දර ගැන කියා දෙනවා. මම ඔහුට ප්‍රශ්න යොමු කරනවා. මගේ අනන්‍යතාවයත් පුද්ගල භාවයත් සහිත මට මේ සම්ප්‍රදාය තුල කිසිදු සම්බන්ධතාවයක් ගොඩනගා ගත නොහැකි බව මම එහි පිටස්තරයෙකු බවත් ඔහු මට පැහැදිලි කරනවා. ඇඳුම් ආයිතම් ඇඳගත් ඇඳුරා නැත්තම් නතර ශිල්පියා තමා වැටා ඇති අවකාශයේන ශක්ති ප්‍රභවයක් එක්ක සහ සම්බන්ධ වෙනවා. ඒ තමන්ගේ ස්කන්ධය ඔස්සේ සංනිවේදනය කරනවා. ධාතුවක් වෙනවා මිස තමා කවුද කුමක්ද කියන මමත්වය අතහැරෙන පුද්ගලයෙක් බවට පත් වෙනවා. මේ ධර්මතාවය බෞද්ධ දර්ශනයේන අභිධර්මවාදී දර්ශනයක් එක්ක සම්බන්ධ කොටගෙන ඒ මම මේ මහුම් කලාවේ මෝස්තර ඔස්සේ සංනිවේදනය කරනවා. බිය නිසා අතහැරපු පිළිම උරුමේ සංස්කෘතියට අයත් නොවන ලෙස සලකා අතහින් ලද ගොඩනැගිලි වල කොටස් ස්මාරකයන් වල කොටස් නැවතත් මේ රෙදිපිලි මෝස්තර ශිල්පයේ හරහා නැවත පුනර්ජීවනයට පත් කරනවා. එතකොට එම ස්කන්ධයේ හිම ස්වභාවය සෑම පැතිකඩ ඔස්සේම එම ව්‍යුහය සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම උල්ලංඝනය කරමින් එක්තරා විකෘතියක් බවට පත් වෙනවා. මම දැන් එසේ නොපෙනෙන ශක්තියින් ප්‍රභවයන් පිළිබඳ මේ ශාන්ති කර්ම ජන කතාන්දර හරහා ඓතිහාසික උරුමයන්හි නොපෙනෙන කොටස්කරුවන්ගේ පැවැත්ම සොයා යනවා. Love and
For those of us who are working in a performance practice, bringing works into the space like this, where it's 5-minute presentations, it's quite challenging because performance as made by this young generation is mostly durational performance. And some of you may have seen Chathuri in the ground. She has been walking around as this old beggar woman, Nonchi. And in fact, through the whole performance, she has been sitting in a shrine. So she has been holding this statue of the mother and sitting in a shrine, and basically, this was the challenge of how to create these performances that stretch over time, and in the end, they have a small pop on stage, but how to hold true to a durational performance. And so now we are going to go into the last 2 Seed Awardees, and Suranga's video will play.
Kaya Collective is primarily an activator of processes through the universe of the filmmaking. We are an independent production house based in Sri Lanka that creates quality visual works by a new generation of Sri Lankan and Southeast Asian filmmakers. Our projects aim to create cultural and artistic links between Sri Lanka and the rest of the world. In 2020, we were thinking artistically about the feeling of the failed society. We felt the same feeling of failure when the so-called Sri Lankan Revolution of 2022 has failed. So we asked ourselves, what if the way we react to the crisis is part of the crisis itself? We suddenly realized that we are moving into the cracks of this society, and then our artistic practices are ways of asking questions, of exploring answers in a post-human world. Searching then becomes more important than the result, the journey more important than the destination. Kaya Collective moves in a hybrid territory between documentary, fiction and video art. We are active through various participatory processes which aim to involve local, international and diasporic communities.
Kaya Collective has accumulated a lot of experience through participatory processes over time. Participation in Locarno Open Doors 2017 increased both its national and international skills. Over time, Kaya Collective has co-produced films such as Still Here, shot between Slave Island Port City in Sri Lanka and partly in Milan within the Sri Lankan diaspora. Still Here is a black fairy tale conceived in an uncharted territory that blends elements of neo-noir, documentary and video art. It occupies a disconcerting space on blurred border between reality, memory and imagination. Furthermore, King Nothing, a web series that unfolded within an authentic fishing community employing a participatory process that featured the non-professional actors. It is a cool experimental work based on a lot of research shot in a tiny fishery village where men fish and most women are off to Italy for housemaid gigs. It was a story about a young boy who's not into fishing like his father and Italy isn't calling despite his mom's constant nudge. We kept it real, shooting in an authentic fishery village in Vennapur, also known as Small Italy.
Hello. Amme. Hello. Hello.
Atelier Naga, Unknown Water, is the next big band from Kaya Collective. It is our upcoming month-long artistic residency scheduled for the second half of 2024 on the island of Nagadeepa, located north of Sri Lanka. This initiative is an invitation for participation, encouraging collective exploration and the development of solutions for adapting to the challenges posed by new climate regime. The residency aims to question the significance of images and sound, fostering artistic processes that engage with the island and its inhabitants.
this performance with Arpita will continue for the next hour. And in next hour, we would all be having drinks, as well as there will be a music performance. And this performance with Arpita, where you can come on stage to whisper a memory to her. It's going to be special because the first time she's performing in Sri Lanka. She's performed this in Calcutta and also in Rome and I think in Mumbai and in Amsterdam. And it's you just have to spend a couple of minutes with her and you can take your time. So we're going to split now again to having dinner, having some music performance, and this performance goes on as a way to continue performance as a durational process and not just to have a show to be consumed by the audience, but it's a kind of exchange between you and Arpita. And I think that I want to thank everybody for being here and for the great work by the seed artists. The process has been 3 months long. We've started working on Zoom 3 months ago, and then after that, meeting first in a group and then one-on-one, and discussing the work, how to bring it out in 5 minutes. That was such a terrible challenge to do this presentation in 5 minutes because everyone wants to talk about their work with half an hour, 15 minutes. But to ask them to come all this way and to present 5 minutes was a kind of a challenge. So I hope that you will join us in giving one final round of applause before you leave, have dinner, come and perform with Arpita for a couple of minutes, and also to listen to the music performance. Thank you very much. This is a meditation.
If I just may, I think the final applause will be for Keng Sen Ong for his work. I mean, he has been putting all his energy and inspiration into this program. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.